if you could talk about the set, the essential Howard Gardner on education and the essential Howard Gardner on mind.
Okay, well, for those people who are watching rather than listening, uh, this is one book. It's called The Essential Howard Gardner on Mind. We've been talking mostly about that, but there's another book uh, called The Essential Howard Gardner on Education. The cover was made by my son, Jay. I look a little bit younger and better there. And when you reach my age, I've written over 30 books and over 1,000 articles. That's what I do. I'm a scholar and writer and reader. No one is going to read all those things. My late mother did put them on display in her house, but she didn't read them either. But I had the chance to put together 25 or 30 of my articles about the mind and 25 or 30 articles about education. And then I forgot this, but my wife reminded me, and it's important. It isn't just a collection of my papers, it's a story. Because before each paper, I talk about what gave me this idea, what excited me, what was I unsure about, and if I were to rewrite this paper again today, how would I do it differently? And in the education book, one of the last essays is advice to young researchers, what I think, how I think they should go about learning about the world. And the last essay in the Mind book is called Had I World Enough and Time? And that's a line from poetry, but it really was, if I could live longer, and I'm not going to live much longer, what are the kinds of things that I would want my students and my readers to do? So the book is not only a collection of Gardner work, good and bad, but it's also a story of how I came up with this work. And it's a letter to the future about what I think people should be studying and how I think they should be studying it. And one thing we joke about now, and probably you've heard this kind of joke too, is we have machines now, especially large language instruments, ChatGPT, which are very, very good at thinking and writing in the way that human beings do, because they can process billions of bits of information. So I think I joke in the book that maybe even after I die, if you want to say, what does Gardner have to say about Taye and his program? You feed that question to the large language instrument, and they'll come up with something that's kind of reasonable, probably better than I would come up with if I were senile, but maybe not as good as if I had all my wits. So we live at a very incredible time. In some sense, it's the end of the human era. And I don't mean that judgmentally, but we come out of Africa. The first Homo sapiens were there several million years ago. The first of the hominids were there several million years ago. Homo sapiens, if we're there, 3 or 4, maybe 30 or 40,000 years ago. And in the last 5,000 years, Homo sapiens has just taken over the planet, maybe even the globe. I mean, maybe even the universe. We don't know. That's not true anymore. This is, in a sense, this is the end of the human dominant era. I forget whether I sent this to you, Taye, but we posted a month or so ago an article called "Who Owns Intelligence?" And it begins with what you and I were talking about, namely, how did the intelligence test get developed so we could just have one sense of intelligence, give you a test, and say how smart you are. And then I challenged intelligences with multiple intelligences. Dan Goleman challenged intelligences with emotional intelligence. But then in this long essay, which I wrote with Shinri Furuzawa and Annie Tsushura, we talk not only about human intelligence, but about animal intelligence, plant intelligence, and artificial intelligence. Because intelligence isn't just a way of talking about you and me and the other 8 billion people on the planet. There are also animals that can do some things better than us, many things as well as we can, some things differently, but who can say whether it's better or worse? And there's some things they can't do. They can't have a conversation, as far as we know, like you and I are having. So that's animals. Plants is a bigger stretch, but we now know that when there's something dangerous in the environment, a plant can signal other plants, and the other plants will fold and move in a different direction. We didn't know this except by folklore until 10 or 20 years ago. And when I was a student, the word artificial intelligence didn't even exist. It was created in 1956 at a meeting at a university. And I wrote a book about AI and other studies of the mind called The Mind's New Science. This came out in the 1980s, and I talked about artificial intelligence there. But that was like artificial intelligence was just beginning to creep and crawl. It was like an 8-month-old infant. Now, just about everything that human beings can do, AI can do as well or better. So we can't just say intelligence is something that we as people have. We need to have a much broader way of thinking about intelligence. And just to give you a punchline, at the end of that essay, I talk about what I think makes something an intelligence and what I think doesn't count as an intelligence. And there are certain things like the kind of communication system that you and I have, which animals and plants don't have. But I talk about why would one want to call an AI system, an artificial intelligence system, smart the way we call human beings smart? And the answer I come up with is artificial intelligence does better on all of the multiple intelligences than we do, with two question marks. One is intrapersonal intelligence. What does it mean for an AI machine to talk about itself? I mean, I don't know how old you are. I don't know where you were born. I don't know what enabled you to travel to 70 countries. Nobody else watching you has gone to 70 countries. That's your story. And if you have a psychiatrist or you have a minister, you can share that story. What would it mean for an AI system to have intelligence about itself? I don't know what that would mean. And the other thing, which most people would think of if they thought about, is what does it mean to be conscious? I mean, I got up this morning, I forgot to take my medicine. I had a pain in my back. My wife and I took a walk, and that's all part of our consciousness. And she said, can I go out to see my friend now, or do you need me to help with the headphone? And I said, I think I'm okay. That's my consciousness. And I'm sure you have, your consciousness isn't the same, but not only are you conscious, but you're self-conscious. I can reflect about the fact that I didn't remember to take my medicine this morning. I don't know what it would mean for a computer algorithm to have that kind of understanding itself. It makes no sense to me. It's like a category era. So that's what I'm working on with my research staff now. And it's another way of carrying on my work after I die, because Annie just finished college. She's probably a third of my age. But if she's interested in this question of plant intelligence and I drop dead tomorrow, she can still continue it.
Wow, that's really amazing. I appreciate you breaking that down.